Day 1. We first started out with marching outside. We brought our instruments and water and learned a few fundamentals of high school band marching. We were also introduced to a new girl, also of my class, who moved here from Nevada. We had to learn how to march forward first. They painted these purple lines on the parking lot to symbolize the football yard lines. We had to make 8 so-called equally sized steps forward, and we did both sets of 8 and 16 steps. It was also a bit of a hot day that day, in the 90s. We did that until 11:30 when we had lunch. My grandma had apparently packed me a triple-layer ham and cheese sandwich with 4 slices of bread. These aren't your average tiny thin slices. Those were cut from a large piece of ham. Later, the high schoolers came in. We had sectionals shortly after, during which we were guided through our pieces. When this one tenor sax kid tried to get his stand working, the part that held the music just came off. My stand wasn't raising up, so I had to swap mine out. Eventually, we got through everything, and we were sent back to the band room a bit before 2 p.m. We went back outside to march, and it was just as hot as it was this morning. We learned how to march turns and march backwards. For the backward marches, we literally had to glide and scrape our feet against the asphalt. My shoe might get butchered from this. Finally, we went inside after some time, played the national anthem, Seven Nation Army, and Hey Baby. There was even a song that was called Hey Brother. Whoever picked out these songs really knows life. Day 2. When I got to the band room that morning, everything was as normal. The band director told us to assemble our instruments and we went outside to march. We learned slants, where everyone would move specifically so that we would end up diagonally apart from each other. At noon, the high schoolers came, and we had lunch. Today's lunch wasn't as unreasonable as yesterday's lunch, just some tacos, stale Pringles, and apple chunks. Someone got yelled again for eating in the band room. The band director told us that anywhere else but the band room was fine. Then we dispersed for sectionals. Like yesterday, the trombones, baritones, and tenor saxes made their way to the stage, and we had our usual warm-up of breathing exercises and no polishing. Then we got into our music. We had chairs to sit in this time. However, that was on the condition that when we be called to play, we stand up. If we don't fulfill that, our chair will be taken away from us. None of our chairs were seized by our sectional leader. At the end, the sectional leader told us a funny story about a failed inspirational speech. We went back, and by 2 p.m., everyone else had come back. We played a few of our show songs before we had to make our way down to the main office to play the alma mater for a staff member who was retiring today. I couldn't manage to get the music into that flipbook correctly, so I assumed that I had memorized the alma mater already. But I hadn't, and so I played it correctly sometimes, played a mix of both the first and second parts at times, or sometimes just guessed what was going on. After we played in the lobby, we went back, played another show song or so, and went outside to march. This time, we also learned the stacks, when we would realign everyone from a slant. We also did reviews on our turns. When I had a turn, I ended up stepping hard to a puddle since it had rained earlier. I wet a good chunk of my leg, and it was mildly embarrassing, though also a bit funny. Day 3. Before band camp even actually started, the band director had a chat with a few people, and that took 30 minutes. We didn't do anything during that time. We just sat there. I forgot my music that day. It also didn't help that it was the day that we began to write in the show moves for our songs. By the way, the music was just in a different folder on my bag. The whole time. By the way, my handwriting isn't that bad. This is my actual handwriting when written by hand. If we did, I'd have to just guess and hope that my memories were correct. The drum major later told me that you never guess your memories in marching band, and I believe he's correct. I remember still what had happened when we played the alma mater for the retiring staff member. During a period of break, the band room became a mess. This one tenor sax player brought in grapes and chucked them across the room, aiming for percussionist's mouth. However, though it did make it occasionally, most of the time, both of them missed. There was also a pencil in the roof for some reason, and it's going to fall down naturally. Day 4. During our morning marching session, the band director was supposed to come out after about 15 minutes, but it had already been over an hour without his appearance. So, my middle school band teacher devised a plan for an ambush. However, just a minute or two after we agreed, the band director came out. Even though distractors were the plan, none of them kicked into action, so nothing special happened out of that. We ate lunch and played some of our stand tunes and had sectionals. Today, we established the Republic of Chairs, and pretty much all crimes against the state are punishable by either loss of chair or execution by being fired a chair from a cannon. An hour or so later, my squad gathered in a part of the hallway to write down the moves for our show for another song. When we went outside to march it was pretty disastrous, as any new marching moves go. Day 5. I had orientation this morning and my locker was being annoying. I also had no clue where all my classes are, and there's no more orientation days to do this. So I'll just have to figure things out on the first day of school. Actually, I have gone to orientation a few days after this original script was written, but my locker is still being a pain in the At band camp, we went outside to march some of our music, and it went somewhat better than the problems that we had yesterday. During the walk to the parking lot that we practiced at, I heard some metal object fall, and I checked my flipbook. I thought that I had dropped the flat washer and screwed the hell of everything together. With the help of another trombone player, we tried to get it. It did not succeed. I told the director, but he said that you couldn't do much about it. However, I then learned that I was so stupid and the hardware was still there. Also, the Republic of Chairs was dissolved today, because apparently people wanted nicer stuff, and they didn't want a dictatorship anymore. So now, it's the Democratic Republic of Chairs. However, that sounds like the name of a communist country where humanity is limited and there is no practical democracy. We marched through everything, and we were free to go after that. That's band camp for this week. Day 6. It had rained this morning, and we still went outside to march. We had written in the march for another song, and we had an abomination doing it. Everyone in my squad got yelled at, and this one tromboner dropped the slide. We didn't really do much else. I know, that's pretty much how I'd sum everything up. However, next week we begin evening practices from 7 to 9. That's going to be a bit of a noof. Day 7. I arrived at school and we went straight outside to march. The tromboners got yelled at for speeding up the tempo of this one song. I also whammed my trombone slide accidentally into 2 girls. So if you are going into marching band, just make sure that you are paying attention when you're marching. Otherwise, you may wham into somebody. Day 8. The clarinets and saxophones had reed inspections. This one saxophone player had a rather dirty reed that seemed old, and maybe there was mold on it. We practiced our whole show today. The drum major got yelled at by the previous drum major for messing up something the previous drum major had taught the current one. We also have a rather high amount of invasive bugs on our football field. This other saxophone player ripped off our flipbook and then stomped on it. We had a good laugh out of that. Day 9. 5 minutes before band camp was supposed to start today, it seemed like half the band was missing. Yesterday, the band director told all of us that we have to arrive early, and arriving at 12:02 was not acceptable. So, I think his concept backfired. We first stayed inside. The band director had turned on the television, and I think he keeps it there just to embarrass us over our marching. When we went outside to practice marching to the football field, the band director threw down his clipboard and stomped on it. He was doing that to kill those invasive bugs. We got onto the field, did our marches and things, and then we left. Like always, we did an alright job marching. In a few days, we'd have to perform for teachers. The band director is literally throwing a loud marching band into an auditorium. That's not really a good idea. Day 10. To keep things short, here's what basically happened. The trombones and tenor saxes got yelled at for messing up a column, or turn. We had to work on it while everyone sat around us and watched. A trombone player was yelled at for not marching high enough. The band director told her that her feet were only going up to about 50% of what everyone else is going up to. The tromboners got yelled at for aiming their horns downwards. A bass drummer stomped on a lanternfly while carrying our bass drum. I don't know if that's funny, but it is what it is. During this one song, we had to march very slowly near the end. The band director yelled at this one kid for stumbling and looking like a dog taking a piss. Around now, school has started. Here's just a few key components of the last few days of band camp. One day, the drum major was twirling his mace. During that twirl, he accidentally dropped it. I think we all be grateful that it was not during a game. During the week into the first week of school, we had rehearsal from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. However, that was also the case for the first day of school. The band director had explicitly said that there would be no evening practices when school began. We had our first school rehearsal on Friday, August 26th, during second block. We tried to perfect our marching and played some stand tunes. We did an alright job, and we didn't get yelled at more than 50 times within those 80 minutes. That same night, we had an away football game to go to. Before then, I had cross country. I came back with some mildly aching legs, and I got dressed into my band t-shirt. I got all my stuff and went over to the band room. I got things prepared, and it took a really long time to deal with my uniform. I was then told that I didn't need to put on my overalls. That only created more work for me, since I had to now put everything back onto the clothes hanger. By then, most people had put their instruments in the trailer, and I did so too. Not long after that, we boarded the bus, and we were all headed for the game. A bit before we had to get off, we had to get into our rather uncomfortable uniforms. It also didn't help that it was still about 70 or 80 degrees at the time. We got off, and our instruments were already set up there, so we just picked them up and got going. When we got into the stands, we were free to go, and we all took off our uniforms. We went then to get food. I originally wanted some chicken and corn soup and a barbecue sandwich. However, they had no soup. Also, the sandwich was pretty much a sloppy Joe hot dog. We were sent into the stands where we played songs. We had to play the fight song about 6 or 7 times today because the football team scored a ton of touchdowns. During our stand tunes, my phone was being a big problem. I used a lot of dirty language that day, and not many things were in my favor. This year, we didn't get paper copies of our stand tunes, so we got these phone liars. They were really annoying. For the half of the songs, I just outright played without the music in some sort. For example, in Hey Baby, I didn't even use my phone because it was being a pain. In Seven Nation Army, we had headbangers as a measure. That nearly tossed my phone, so I ended up playing the second half of this song without the music. Adding on, other songs in the half had some portions to play without me looking at the music. I know, all that is a bad idea. They also threw up water bottles if you wanted them. That sounds like a somewhat bad idea, because one time, this kid didn't catch and his water fell down the bleachers. When we performed the show, my overall strap came off, and I just had to pray that I would not end up with a major embarrassment. Thankfully, nothing too bad happened, and we went back to the stands to do more stuff. The band director had told us to get our phones charged, but I thought I didn't need to do that. However, now I had a phone whose battery was only at 6%. I was pretty much screwed. There was another tromboner who had a portable charger that he allowed me to borrow. That thing saved me. Here is my battery report for my phone. We went back to school, got things put away, and went home. I didn't go to bed that night until 11:40 a.m., but honestly, it was a good night that night.